righteous person has no fear of death, because death to them is simply seen as an opportunity to transfer from this world into the Olam Haba, that is the world that is to come. Hi, this is Barry Phillips with 10-Minute Torah, day number 2, the Torah portion of Vayiki. Let's continue now in Bereshit chapter 47, Genesis 47, beginning again with verse 29 to the end of the chapter. And the time for Israel to die drew near, and he called his son Joseph and said to him, Now if I have found favor in your eyes, please put your hand under my thigh and show loving commitment and truth to me. Please do not bury me in Mitzrayim. But I shall lie with my fathers, and you shall take me up out of Mitzrayim and bury me in their burial place. And he said, I do as you have said. And he said, Swear to me. And he, that is Joseph, swore to him, to Yaakov. And to Israel bowed himself, this translation says, upon the head of the bed. More on that in a moment. So you're about to die. No, well, we hope you're not about to die, but theoretically, we come to the end of life. I've heard people say, well, you know, when I die, it really doesn't matter. Just throw me in any old hole or leave me to rot, whatever, because I don't care. Well, there's more to it than that. We take care to bury people with some sense of honor and integrity to reflect the honor and whatever deemed integrity that they had during life. It's our sense of closure. Obviously, it is more important for us than those that have gone beyond. But it's a celebration of their lives. Oftentimes, funerals now are not referred to as a funeral, but the celebration of one's life. Our influence, as we talked yesterday, needs to continue on even after the moment that we have passed on. I have had I don't know if you would call it the privilege, but the opportunity on several occasions to walk into a room where one was near to death. And having walked into the room, had this strange sudden awareness that a messenger of the Most High was in the room and ready to take the individual. One occasion was my wife's grandmother. We walked in. She was not conscious. My wife's aunt, younger aunt, was holding her hand and holding on to her. And I just knew, don't ask me how, I didn't necessarily see, I perceived, caught a spiritual glimpse of that being standing just beyond the grandmother. And I knew that her time was short. We walked out of the room after spending some time there, walking down the hall. I spoke to Laura, my wife, and said, she's not going to make it. The messenger of Yah is already in the room to take her. We traveled from the hospital to where we were going to sleep that night at the grandmother's house. And as we walked in the door, the phone rang and she had passed away. Now, I didn't know it was that sudden, but I knew that she was ready to be escorted into the realm beyond. That's happened on several occasions. I had the privilege of meeting one of my elders' mother. Unfortunately, it was at the time of her near death. In the hospital, in a room, we walked in, and she is just fascinated with something in the ceiling. I look up, it's just lights. Just a standard light fixture, but she's captivated. And as we converse, I said, do you see him? And she quickly looked at me and said, and quickly looked back. And I said, when he reaches for you, it's safe. You go. She died within an hour or two, I think, that night. Well, after we had left. There is a veil. And it's a lot thinner, perhaps, than most of us understand. We as humans, we fight this idea of death. We struggle to survive. Many have an innate fear of death. The instinct for survival and living it is so strong in us. But when you come down to it, death is not the finality of being. It is the moving of our being from one realm to the other. The life continues. Yaakov is in such a situation. He's beginning perhaps to see the veil and peer beyond it. And his mind and his heart are now focused not on Mitzrayim, but he wants to go home. It's interesting in the Hebrew that the word karav is used. We would transliterate that K-A-R-A-V, karav. It means to draw near. When the time of death was drawing near, or drawing nigh, I think the King James says. Then he began to make arrangements with the one who had the authority and the power to do what he was going to request, his son Joseph. As he then makes arrangements, the heart is, bury me in the cave of Machpelah, where Grandpa Abraham is, Grandma Sarah, where my father is, where my mother is. I want you to bury me there. There's a sense of importance about this resting place. And it's not so much just the cave in particular, although that's extremely important. It's the precedent. Israel, as a people, you belong in the land. Israel as the individual belonged not in Mitzrayim. Don't bury me here. This is not where I belong. I belong in the land. Israel as a people, follow my precedent. You want to go home. The word karab here, it's the root where we get the word korban, K-O-R-B-A-N, korban. That's the word that we translate as sacrifice or offering, such as an animal sacrifice. The word doesn't mean shedding of blood or killing an animal. It means drawing near. The shed blood or the life-giving of an animal was a mechanism by which we could draw near. The shed blood of Yeshua, it is a korban. It is the means by which we draw near to the Father. So there is a sense of drawing near here, and he is saying, I want to be drawn near to my root. Now, there's a couple of things I want to quickly point out. One is that he called on Joseph, again, because he had the authority and the power to do what his father requested. For Israel, as a concept, as a people, as a nation, as the house of Israel, there are things that only Joseph can do. There are things, prophetically speaking, about last day end time events that only those that are of the house of Joseph can do. We need to seek those things out as members of this house and see what it is that Yah wants us to do. We don't sit on the porch in a rocking chair, fold our arms and say, prophecy will come to pass and he'll just do what he's going to do. No, he's going to employ you and I. Whenever Yah moves in the earth, he uses us. He uses the agency of mankind. So be available. Secondly, it says that he bowed upon, and the Hebrew letters here are Mem, Tav, He. And the idea is that, or actually, Mem, Tet, He. Mem, Tet, He. This can be translated as mitah, or bed, or mate, staff. One who is a shepherd would oftentimes carve into their shepherd staff significant imagery about significant events in their lives. He's leaning perhaps on the end of his staff, saying, my life is complete. As Matthew chapter 25 says, well done, good and faithful servant. enter into the joy of the Master. May our lives end with such words. We'll go to chapter 48 tomorrow. Until then, shalom.